Welcome to the FAM Podcast, everybody. Today, we're privileged to have a rising force in New York's alt-rock scene. Under the name Duunes, Harrison Cohen has been creating sly, driving alternative rock that surges with raw energy and electrifying vocals. His debut EP, Vacation from Myself, dropped in April 2024, with multiple tracks landing on editorial playlists across major streaming platforms. After going viral with his cover of Ain't No Rest for the Wicked, amassing over 25 million views, Duunes has taken that momentum to the stage, selling out shows in New York City, Boston, and playing venues like the Bowery Ballroom. Please welcome Harrison Cohen of Duunes and a former FAM musical guest. How you doing, buddy?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Johnny?
Great, man. Great to have you as always. Dude, I was such a fan of your set and really stoked to hear Ballerina Fingers right before it went live a couple hours later that night. That song is one of my personal favorites.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I think we didn't get a chance to talk much that night, but I think one of the things I'm always so fascinated by is, for a musical artist like yourself, how did you get into music? Where are you from? Like, where did the path to becoming an alt-rock rocker, musician, manifest for you?
Yeah. I guess I grew up being involved in a lot of different musical endeavors where I was playing in bands. I did a lot of professional acting growing up. I did musical theater. And when I went into college, I realized that I really wanted to go hard with making it in music. I studied music industry at Drexel University, where you figure out how to work in the industry on top of being an artist. So for me, I've always wanted to be a musician, be a songwriter, and I figured I would take that knowledge to learn how to not get myself into sticky situations with people, whether it's legal. So yeah, I pretty much cemented myself into this world from day one and have been working in the industry adjacent to being Duunes and having projects and playing across the East Coast and multiple different bands. And now I am Duunes. That might have been a long-winded or short.
That's awesome. I'm curious, what was your first musical memory?
My first musical memory, maybe this isn't mine, but some of the first words that I ever said were the lyrics to Hey Jude. And this was before people were posting lyrics on the internet. So it was just playing in my family's house, and I was just singing these words. I was just an infant, and my dad wrote down all of the words, and I still have his handwriting in those lyrics somewhere in my childhood bedroom where he would just sing that song to me or play it growing up. So I feel like that might not be something I remember, but I've been told that is one of the first musical experiences I've ever had.
That's awesome. Were your parents musical or creatives or artists?
No. So both my parents, they actually are trained to be lawyers. Neither of them are lawyers at the moment. But yeah, they didn't really play instruments, or they weren't musically inclined. But I guess I just showed an interest in this from a really young age, and they were extremely supportive and helped me grow and morph into who I am today.
Yeah, it sounds like they really helped inspire at least your initial love of music, writing lyrics to the Beatles, for you at a very young age. At what point did you realize, music is what I want to do? At what point were you like, this is just more than a hobby, this is, my passion?
I think I knew this really early on, especially in high school. I was working with a Grammy Award winning songwriter, and he was teaching me pretty much how to write music. And when you're 14 years old, there's not always going to be a lot on the mind to dive into really cutthroat, heart-wrenching songs. And
that middle school breakup.
The middle school breakup. And I always found that writing music and writing lyrics or just being in music was just something, it gave me this feeling and escape that nothing else gave me. I feel like it sounds cliche, but especially songwriting too, you approach it differently every time. It's one of these puzzles and these enigmas that can be all encompassing. It could come to you in 5 minutes. It could come to you in 2 months. So breaking that puzzle is something that has never really left my attention, and something that I've just really obsessed over since. And that, with maybe a few other moments, just made me realize this is what I want to do forever, whether that's also performing on stage. I just feel like a completely different person. So combining that with just that overall passion, nothing else gives me that drive, or I don't lust over anything else like that. It's just feels amazing. And
it's so interesting to hear you describe songwriting as a puzzle, because so often, people don't really appreciate that, writing a hook, writing a chorus, writing a verse, it really is like putting different puzzle pieces together. You have a concept, you need a lift, then you need a middle eight, kind of like keep things fresh, and how do different lyrics fit in different places. I guess, did you start out as a guitarist, pianist, singer-songwriter? Like, what was your first instrument? What was your first entry point into songwriting?
Yeah, my first instrument was playing guitar. I started that maybe when I was 6 or 7, and I just wanted to be in a band like Chicago. My dad was playing a bunch of Chicago at the time. I was like, I want to play guitar like that. So yeah, I started with guitar, and then I think my first entryway into songwriting was a band I had in 5th grade. Super cool. We were called the Crownless Kings, and that was the first time I ever started to write music. And
in 5th grade.
Yeah, and then I would just write songs when I was growing up to convince my parents to buy me things.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
do you remember the first song you wrote?
The first song that I wrote was in a band. That was a different band, but called the Peacemakers. We performed at the Pigpen, and it was called Momentum. And it's the video somewhere on YouTube. You could probably find it somewhere. It's pretty funny. But
so let's talk about like the songwriting, especially songwriting as a puzzle. Because this is a concept as a songwriter myself that really fascinates me, and it's not something I hear people talk about really often. Like when you start with a song, they say you start with sometimes a melody, a lyric, a chord progression. For electronic musicians, sometimes you start with a beat. When you sit down and write, where do you start?
Honestly, it is different every time. Lately, a lot of the writing I've been doing is more co-writes. So I'll get together with a producer or a few different people that I collaborate with, and usually we just start talking about a concept. Like I was in a session 2 days ago, and how we usually work in that space is we'll come up with just an overall concept or maybe an idea for a chorus, because for the music that I'm putting out and what I want to do, if you don't have a good chorus, you might not as well put out that song that's going to give it the most shelf life, that's going to propel it as far as it can go.
So you're solving for the chorus.
Yeah. So when I'm writing with them, we're solving for the chorus. Once we have a good chorus, a good hook, middle 8 section, everything else will kind of blossom around it. There's other circumstances where I pretty much start with nothing. Maybe the first step will be coming up with some kind of drum groove, programming that, playing a few guitar chords over it, recording that in like a Pro Tools or a Logic, and just top lining and kind of seeing what comes. And rather than having that initial concept, filling in the gibberish with words and having it grow into something throughout that process. Like that song Ballerina Fingers, when we were writing that song, we just had a splice sample going on repeat, and I was just singing this top line, which was the chorus, and Jordan, who I wrote the song with, just started saying things about ballerina fingers like you could stick in my mouth, and we were kind of just piecing it together and coming up with the most obscure, weird shit that we could think of. And so that song just came out of nowhere. That wasn't like, we want to write a song about ballerina fingers. Like, what the fuck are ballerina fingers?
What I love, and I think, just for context for our listeners, Ballerina Fingers is the second most recent single that you put out that's actually charting on different Spotify editorial playlists, and you actually debuted it at our FAM event a couple months ago. I think what's interesting about the structure of that song is that you start in that song with the chorus first. And this is actually a technique that you don't see very often anymore. Like the Beatles, early Beatles were very known for doing this with like help, I need somebody, help. And then they'd go into the chorus, into the verse. Similarly, you do a instead of a verse, chorus, verse, you kind of flip it and you do chorus, verse, chorus. You give people the hook right away with the ballerina fingers, hook and lyric. And then you go into your falsetto verse before the song evolves. Like, how do you think about playing with different song structures, especially, today when so much, songwriting is, standard verse, chorus, bridge?
Yeah, I think that it is. I know for me, I write a lot in what you just described. I feel like it's very easy and it's a default method that has proven itself time and time again. But when you're writing so much, it's fun to just switch it up where it's, if it feels good, like the Ballerina Fingers song, we didn't go into that with any intention. It just kind of happened and put itself together without either of us thinking much. I don't know if that answers the question, but I don't have a really tailored answer for that.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's an emergent thing that happened.
It's an emergent thing
from that session.
Yeah.
Is that a collaboration, an example of a collaboration?
Yeah, that was an example of a co-write. Yeah.
Co-write, yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious how you approach co-writing versus writing alone.
Yeah, so when I'm writing alone, what I'll typically do is it'll just be me and an acoustic guitar, and I'll just start playing something, and the lyrics, chords, and melody will pretty much come together all at once, where I won't start with a chorus or I won't start with an idea. That's just more stream of conscious. I'll just start writing different metaphors, seeing what sticks, playing parts over and over again until it feels right, and then maybe a few hours later I'll have a song. That's traditionally what I've done when I write alone, but I have started to use different tools and digital audio workstations to program my own stuff and just, I'm going to write a verse, chorus, similar to how I would do in a session. When I'm doing the session stuff, it's more we're building a track, and on top of that track, we're putting top lines and melodies and filling the space with words. So I would say when it's just me, it's a lot looser, and when I'm in a co-write, it's more we're gonna write a song in like 5 hours, and we're gonna leave here with a demo that we can listen to that will sound similar to the final product.
Yeah, it's so interesting because for me, when I do co-writes or collaborations, it's like you're jamming on top of a beat, and you're basically brainstorming melodies. It's like you sing a hook and then I'll throw a hook back, and then we just kind of riff on different hooks and see where that kind of takes you. Whereas when I'm sitting alone in my bedroom with a guitar, drinking a coffee or something like that, it's more, as you said, almost like journaling. It's like stream of conscious. It's like I'm writing in my diary with melody, if you will.
For sure. I think there's something to be, I think both are great. I think when you're writing alone, it's sometimes easier to come up with those deeper, more inner feelings and bringing those to life than in a session when you have another person also coming up with lyrics, and you're just going at that point sometimes with what best suits the song versus what best am I feeling right now and how am I trying to evoke that emotion. Yeah. So totally. I think they're both great for different purposes, and yeah.
I'm curious to kind of switch things up from the creative process to the business process of launching your project, because you put out your debut EP last year, I think in April. It's been really well received. Here we are a year later, you're putting out 2 more tracks. How do you think about growing? What's your approach to launching a project and growing the project?
It's a loaded question.
It's the $1 million question everyone wants to know.
To keep it streamlined, because there are so many, my brain is just undiagnosed ADD, so it just goes in a bunch of different directions all at once. But I think if I was to start over again and use this as a platform, and really, because every day is a new day and a new opportunity, but figure out what have really good music. So the music is a given, but you need so much more than music to really make it today with just all the social media platforms. But before you even make that content, and we were talking about this right before we were in front of few cameras, but making art that emulates the music in a way that maybe drives you and that you're passionate about, where it's so easy today to make very clickbait content and make things exclusively for TikTok, or maybe you're describing your songs about, this is about my ex-girlfriend and how she hurt me, that kind of thing, or this is for all X, Y, and Z people who feel this. But making visuals or things that really resonate with you and figure out what you're trying to say as opposed to what you think other people want you to say, and having a clear message, and then building a content strategy around that. Because I think, one, you feel that. I think other people will grab onto it as well, and you're not running around like a chicken without a head trying to accommodate everyone. So if I was to launch a project, it would start with the music, then making content I care about, and then being consistent. Well, that did not happen. We're gonna like Men in Black everyone. But starting, yeah, once you have the content, having a really good social media strategy, and if social media is not your thing, just being consistent. Where I think a lot of people today, they put their music out on the internet, they post about it for a week, and they're frustrated that nothing's happened. Well, how much time do you put into that song versus how much did you put into advertising it? You need to, especially if you're an independent artist, just push your channels consistently, massage your audience, put an earworm in their head, and just continue. Where I see a lot of people that can have huge careers, have incredible music, and they might have great audiences of their shows, but to really pop off, you just need to continue to be consistent.
I love that. I think implicit in what you're saying too is so much of social media we as artists treat as marketing, and we're not marketers.
Yeah.
And because we're not marketers, when we treat it as marketing, it's really deflating and it's hard to be consistent. But when you find the thing that actually gives you energy, that inspires you, when you find a way to represent your music visually in a way that for you is your visual art, then it's much easier to be consistent, to keep pushing your music, because effectively you're not just pushing your music via marketing, you're making art that's visual to your music.
Exactly. It's just another extension of the original art form, which I think is something that gets so people, I'm having a brain fart, but it's something that people forget about, or they overthink it, or they try to just do the easy way out, and there's no easy way.
Yeah. So. And it's so interesting because I think this so similarly ties to just the creation of art itself, as whether your medium is music or visual art. If you're not making stuff that resonates with you, it's going to be really hard to make stuff that resonates with others, because ultimately you have to serve yourself in order for your art to serve others.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna say that, but yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So what's up next for Duunes?
What's up next for Duunes? So we have some shows in New York coming out. We're playing a big show at Drom on June 13th. Putting out a lot of new music. Me and my manager were just finalizing some of the release schedule stuff, but expect a full EP, 5-song EP in June. The last single from that will probably be out May 30th. And pretty much after that, new music every 5 weeks for Duunes. I just had a meeting with my agents yesterday, and we're going to be playing a lot outside of the New York metropolitan area starting in September, across the East Coast, Northeast, the South, maybe some coastal shows on the Pacific. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff, and all the best is yet to come with Duunes. So I'm really excited. Like, we're just getting started. It's only been a year and a half since the project has taken off, and we're a lot of good stuff in the works.
That's awesome, man. It's super inspiring. Thank you again so much for taking time.
Thank you, Johnny, for
stoked to have you, man. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.